Well, hi again, it's Wayne Comben here, the Small Boat Angler, and today we've got a recipe for you. It involves cod, one of my favourite fish. In fact, I'll go as far as to say probably my favourite eating fish of all. And what we're doing is a sort of a Mediterranean take on it, which will be pan-fried cod with chorizo and roasted Mediterranean vegetables. And first thing we're going to do is get the veg on, because that takes the longest to cook. So we start off with the potatoes, and what I've done is I've got some nice baby new potatoes here. I've cut them into even pieces and we've parboiled them. Now the reason I've done that is because if you put all this veg together in the oven, some of it cooks quicker than others. The vine tomatoes we have, for instance, will be overcooked, burnt skins and what have you. A little bit of charring's nice, but if they're overcooked they won't be, they'll go like mush. Pretty much the same with the peppers. What we've got here is aubergine, 3 coloured peppers, red onion, a bit of garlic, and this is going to be our roast veg. So I'm just going to prep the veg now, and we'll show you a little bit to do before it goes in the oven. Easiest way I find with these peppers, and they are very easy. I'm not going to tell anyone how to cut a pepper up. It's very easy. I'll just show you the way I do it. I'll cut them straight in half, and then go along that little white pithy edge, around the seed bit. That lifts that straight out. You still got that bit of pith there, which isn't great. So if you cut alongside it, you then just trim that straight off. And what you're left with, a few little seeds don't matter, but what you're left with is nice pure veg. Very, very easy. And these are just basic bell peppers. And obviously I'm cooking for a couple of people today, so I've got quite a bit of veg. You don't need to use all these colours, you can just use your favourite. What you usually find is the green ones are a little bit harsher, and as they go through the colours they become a little sweeter. This is just going to add a bit of colour actually. And peppers usually last quite well in the fridge. If you keep them cool, you generally get a week out of them. Once you cut it, like all veg, once you cut it, it really won't last too much longer than the next day. But if it's the whole pepper before it's cut, they probably last a week in the fridge, no problem. We now have our aubergine, which can be very wet if you're not careful. So put that to one side. What I've done is I've put some greaseproof paper onto my baking sheet, and what that does is that will mean these will roast rather than sort of stew and go mushy. So I'll keep them nice and keep them held together a little bit better than if I just put them on straight onto a baking tray. Same goes for an aubergine. Once it's in the fridge, you've probably got a week before you can use it. Your best bet is when you go and buy it, check them out. Make sure they're nice and lots of colour on them, nice and dark. There's a little bit of give, not too much, you don't want them too soft. Once the skin starts wrinkling on anything, you've not got long really to use it. And I'm going to cut these, all these veggies are going to be cut into even pieces. Which I'm going to do now to make myself a bit of room. So with aubergine, what you'll notice is, as soon as it's cut, it starts to lose its colour. Look at that, already, that's been cut literally a minute, and it's already starting to go brown. Don't worry about it too much, because when it goes in the oven, which is going in very quick, by the way, the oven has been preheated to 200 degrees. Now what it would have been a good idea to have cut this last, just to stop that browning, but in this instance it's not too bad. You can prevent that sometimes by putting a bit of lemon juice in water and putting it in the water. That will prevent the browning too much, but for what we're doing, it's going to be roasted, it's going to go brown anyhow. I'm really not particularly bothered about that starting to discolour so quickly. Some lovely red onions here. Often onions, if they're a little bit over the top, they start going to seed. You know that by the time I get a green stalk coming out the top. What you don't want to do, similar to garlic, which I'll show you in a minute, you don't want any of that in there. Now these are lovely, these haven't got it, but that base where the root comes out is another bit that I find's got an awful flavour, and sometimes if it's just thrown in, someone will get that piece there cooked and it might look nice, but it certainly won't taste nice. So just basically cut that base bit straight off the onion, make sure you get rid of that. I usually just take the first layer off. Cut that piece off of there. And the same thing, you want fairly nice size chunks, because what happens when this roasts, it will caramelise very nicely, go a lot sweeter. So you want to keep the chunks pretty big if you can. They will break up a touch, but if at all possible, keep them a reasonable size. And we're almost done with our veg. Got a little bit of garlic as well to add. I'm not going to mess about with this. I'm not going to mince it or put it in. It's just going to go in whole cloves. So we've got. I mean, you could actually stick that in the middle, but I'm not going to. I'm going to take the cloves out of it. So again, garlic will last an age in the fridge. It really will. The idea with a lot of it is keep it dark as well. If you keep it dark, then it stops it from sprouting. Also, the cool temperature can prevent it as well. Now, with a garlic clove, now these have been in my fridge for quite a long time. Now, what happens, as I mentioned with the onion, if I just top and tail that clove, you'll probably see that it's just starting to want to go. It's still perfectly edible, mind. Now, what happens is a few little blemishes on it. They're nothing. They'll just be straight on the surface, and get rid of those. Now what you'll want to do, what I prefer to do, is if you split that down the middle, you'll see inside where it wants to start to sprout. Now often that will be green. That bit there will be quite green. Again, I don't think that adds anything at all to the flavour. In fact, you can take it away. It's not a very nice taste when it starts to go like that. So if you just huck that middle bit out, these aren't actually as bad as I thought. But anyway, I'm going to put a few cloves of garlic in there as well, just whole like that. Now, make sure that someone doesn't, when you dish this up, doesn't get a whole piece of garlic. Won't be pleasant. It's more to just add flavour to the dish. So I'm going to put half a dozen in there, and I shall make sure that I find those before I dish them out, because you will not want to give someone, unless they're mad on garlic, a huge chunk of garlic. It won't be pleasant. Okay, we've prepped our veg, and what we're going to do now is pour a little bit of olive oil over it, not too much, and really the olive oil is just to get the cooking going, and also to let the flavouring stick around a bit, because oil is a great highway for flavour. It really is. So is fat, for that matter, although people will say it's not good for you. I'll tell you what, a bit of fat on a bit of meat, lovely. Salt and pepper, fresh ground. We can get the grinder working right. Here we go. There we go. Now I'm going to put plenty of that on. I'm going to put a bit more on. But I'm going to turn my veg over. A bit of salt on there as well. So you get your hands dirty, I'm afraid, but they're clean, I should say. But you're going to have to get them dirty by mixing everything up. So your veg, get that oil sticking to most parts of it if you possibly can. Okay, we've oiled our vegetables, give them a nice dash of salt and pepper. Now you can at this stage add rosemary, which is a very nice herb which goes extremely well with the Mediterranean style of cooking. For my part, I'm not a massive fan of rosemary, and in fact I'm not a massive fan of things that are too herby in general, so I'm not going to put any in. I like the flavours of these vegetables individually, and when you roast them it brings them out. It's enough for me. If you want to add rosemary or anything similar, do it, because everything's to taste. It's just how I do it, not particularly how you would want to do it. This is now going on to a Baking tray, as I say, I wouldn't roast it in here, it's too deep. What'll happen is it wouldn't cook evenly, so it's going on to be spread out onto a roasting tray. As I say, I've put some greaseproof paper on there, and that will go in the oven for about 40 minutes. Now halfway through that, I will give everything a turn, and also halfway through that I'll be putting my tomatoes in, because I don't want those overcooked. There's our veg on the tray, spaced out, spread out, and let's go straight in the oven. Middle of the oven, preheated, 200 degrees. Halfway through it, as I say, we'll check on that, make sure it's not burning. And we'll now go on to our fish. Got a lovely fillet of cod here, lovely side of cod. And that cod would have been about 15 pounds, I suppose. And when you take a side off like that, that's been nicely taken off, you will be aware there'll still be bones. Now, when you go over a piece of fish with your hands, you will find some wicked bones in. Now, if I had my pliers, I'd pull that out a lot easier, but I'm not going to bother pulling all these bones out. What I'm going to do, I know where they are on this piece of fish, and I'm just going to trim them out. You lose a little bit of fish. If you want to pick every bone out, that's fine. And as I say, on fish like cod, the bones are pretty big usually, especially on a fish of this size. Now, I know where they are, and I'm just going to, all along this line here, there's bones at the moment. If you put your finger, if you could feel that along there, you'd feel some wicked points. There's one there, for instance. I mean, you do not want that stuck in somebody's throat. I'm particularly fussy about it. I don't particularly like skin, or I definitely don't like bones in my fish. And I'm greedy. I like to shove a big bit in my mouth and chew it and swallow it. I don't want to be choking on a bone or picking bits out. Puts me right off. Check your fillet for bones. I'm going to take these out, and I'm going to prep this fish, but we'll show you that afterwards. Okay, what I've done is I've cut along there, which has taken all these bones out. Now, you've still got a lot of belly meat there. This is not going to be wasted, right, at all. Now, you can, as I say, pick the bones out if you want, but this will go in the, because this is for a fresh piece of cod, so I can freeze this, and this will go into my stock pot for my fish stock. So any bits of offcuts like this, I freeze them down, and then when I've got a bag of them, I'll set it aside, and if I want some fish stock, I'll just boil that up basically, and that will be my fish stock, so it won't go to waste. The belly meat, actually, because it's such a nice big cod, I might cook that piece of belly meat. I'll have to wait and see, but if you look here, we've got a lovely thick piece of cod. Same here, no bones in this, by the way. Now, none along that bit. What I'll do, I want nice even pieces for cooking, so I'm going to trim these up in a moment, and you'll see them afterwards what size they are. Evenly, and then they'll all cook evenly. If you put a great big thick piece in like that, along with a thin tail end, the tail end's going to get cooked a lot quicker, and there's nothing worse than overcooked fish. Okay, now I've taken the skin off of that cod, and you've probably seen the way I did that before. This is your skin. Now for this recipe, I don't want the skin on. Now what you do is, you just get the knife in on the end, just on the end, just underneath like that, not through the skin. In other words, give yourself that little tag end to hold on to. Keep the knife flat. So you've got the tag end, knife flat, and what you do is hold the knife flat and pull the piece of skin, wiggle it even if you like, but keep that knife nice and flat. You've got a little lip here because I'm doing it on the sink, that's better. Now, like so, just wiggle the skin, keep the knife flat, knife flat, knife flat, wiggle, 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 wiggle. Look at that. Not a piece of flesh on that skin, nothing wasted. Look at that. Easy. Now what we need to do now, beautiful cod. Look at that, absolutely stunning. Cod, you know, it's still one of my favourite fish to catch, I have to say. They're not as common as they should be. The last few seasons we've had actually on the south coast some very good cod fishing. Personally I haven't had great cod fishing, but there has been good cod fishing in general. And what I would say about cod is, yeah, people say you know, don't take too many, don't do this, don't do that. Rod and line anglers, I really don't see us doing a huge dent in the population. If I catch 20 cod in a season, say, and that would be an exceptional season for me, where I fish. If I caught 20 cod and kept them, you know, really that is not going to put a dent in the fish stocks. So I don't feel bad about eating cod myself. I know exactly where it's come from. Not been pulled up by the thousands of tons by trawlers. This is fish I've caught myself, and as a consequence I will not be worried about eating cod. All they've done when they've said about other sustainable, eat more sustainable fish, I just feel they put more pressure on different species. Mackerel, for instance, they were saying eat more mackerel. Well, if you suddenly make something popular to the masses, there will be a market for it and it will get targeted more. So anyway, off my high horse about cod now. I'm not going to feel guilty about eating it. This is a beautiful fillet of fish, and what I need to do now is just make sure that I've cut this in even pieces for cooking. Now we've got a huge thick piece there, and as I say, that piece there isn't so thick. So I'm going to sort of look at that and say to myself, there's two portions there. So you have a portion there. Now they will cook relatively quick, evenly I should say. This is a lot thicker. So think about what you do here. Maybe you cut that down the middle. It's very awkward to cut fish like that though. You easily ruin it. I think what I'll do is, I'll just call that another two pieces. I'll cook these, I'll put these in the pan first. In other words, they're thicker, so they'll go in a couple of minutes before these pieces, and that way, hopefully if I get the timings right, it'll all be cooked at the same time. Okay, we've prepped our cod, and very simple this again. I do like simple. I'm not a master chef by any stretch of the imagination. Home self-taught cook, so nothing special here, I'm afraid. Now this is chorizo. Fabulous ingredient. I absolutely love chorizo. I always buy a nice, decent piece as well. Now this has come as a whole hung sausage, if you like. You can buy it ready sliced. There's also some very manky, cheap chorizo about in some of the shops. Avoid it like the plague. It's rubbery, not very flavoursome. Trust me, it's worth getting a decent quality chorizo sausage. Now what I'm going to do, I should cut that in half because I'm not certain how much I'm going to use. So we'll start with that much there. Now these are going to be cut into nice, again, even pieces. So I'll start just by slicing into pieces about so big. And what I'm going to do as well is cut these down again because they're far too big. So I'm looking probably at pieces of chorizo around about so big. In fact, you know, no, I'm going to go down one more. So it's quite rich, quite spicy, adds a beautiful flavour though, it really does. So there you go, that's more like it. They will reduce in size once they're cooked. But I don't want huge pieces of chorizo. And what I'll do, once I've cut these up into sizable pieces, I shall get our pan ready. A little bit of oil, not a lot. Chorizo itself has fat in it, you can see it. So it will produce its own oil as it heats up. And that veg has probably been in now maybe 15 minutes. So another 5 minutes or so, we'll check on that, turn it. The fish won't take that long to cook. Look at those pieces, maybe 5-6 minutes each side. So if you time that, once I've turned that veg over, give it maybe another 5-10 minutes in the oven. I'll get my chorizo in the pan. I shall cook that down so it starts to just reduce and give off the oil. And then once that's cooked down slightly, I shall put my cod in, and with a bit of luck, the timings will be right. By the time the cod's cooked, the veg will be ready and we can plate it. Okay, I've turned my veg. I've now just got the chorizo on a low heat. I don't want to overcook this because it will go quite dry quite quickly. Now I added literally a couple of drops of oil just to get it going. You can see what's come out of that chorizo. Look at that. Look at that. But we're not going to waste that. That would be beautiful to cook that cod in. So what I'm going to do, give that about another 2 or 3 minutes just to sweat it down a little bit more. And then I'm going to take that out and get our cod in over the top of those lovely oily juices. And then we shall pan fry our cod. And it should be absolutely gorgeous. Okay, I've taken the chorizo out. It's not fully cooked, but almost. Here's our lovely fillets of cod. Now they're going to go in, the thicker bits first, over that lovely oil. Once you put them in, we've said this before, leave them. Don't go moving that fish around. So, get it nicely coated in that lovely, lovely chorizo fat. Once it's in like that though, leave it. You move fish around, it breaks up. It's not good. Just keep an eye on that fish. In a moment, you'll start seeing the colour change to an opaqueness along the sides, telling you that it's basically starting to cook the fish through. The thinner piece we have, I'm going to put in after a couple of minutes because it won't take as long to cook. Okay doke, the fish is virtually cooked. Ignore that, it's opened up a little bit on the other side. When I turn it over, the presentation will look a lot nicer. There's your vegetables just out of the oven there, roasted very, very nicely. As I say, that paper tends to suck a bit of the moisture out, so it will roast them as opposed to sort of almost steaming them. And we'll plate up. And here we have it, I've just dished it up. What we've got there is pan-fried cod with chorizo and roasted Mediterranean vegetables. So bear in mind, fellas, next time you're out there on a cold winter's day with big old squid and cuttle bait down, it's worth it because this is what you'll end up with.